Imagine opening a file in the Polish Army archives and finding this. Serial number 22nd Artillery Supply Company. Rank, Corporal. Name, Wojtek. Species, Syrian brown bear. Weight, 500 pounds. Special skills, carrying ammunition under fire, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, and wrestling with soldiers. You'd think it was a joke, but it's not. This is the true story of the only bear ever officially enlisted in any army during World War II, and what he did at one of the war's bloodiest battles will amaze you.
He also, and yes, this sounds absurd, but multiple soldiers confirmed it, he eats cigarettes. Not smokes them, eats them. Soldiers would toss him lit cigarettes, and Wojtek would take a puff, then swallow them whole. Whether he actually enjoyed them or just mimicked the soldiers is unclear, but it became his signature trait. The Syrian brown bear becomes an official member of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. He's not just tolerated, he's loved. For men who've lost everything, their homes, their families, their country, this bear becomes something precious. A reminder that life can still be playful and innocent, even in the middle of a war. 1944. The Polish Second Corps, now operating under British command, is ordered to Italy to join the Allied campaign. They're going to fight in some of the war's most brutal battles. There's just one problem. British transport regulations strictly forbid pets and mascots on military ships. No animals allowed. The Polish soldiers are devastated. Wojtek has been with them for 2 years. He's not just a pet anymore, he's family. He's a symbol of their survival and unity. So the soldiers come up with a brilliant, ridiculous solution. They'll officially enlist Wojtek in the Polish army. On paper, Wojtek becomes a soldier. He's given a rank, private. He's issued a serial number. He's assigned to the 22nd Artillery Supply Company's official roster. He even gets a paybook, a military document listing his service record. It's absurd, it's unprecedented, and it works. The British authorities, confronted with official Polish army paperwork listing a bear as an enlisted soldier, can't argue. Regulations say no pets, but Wojtek isn't a pet, he's a soldier, a private in the Polish army. Wojtek boards the ship to Italy in a specially constructed wooden crate. May 1944, the Battle of Monte Cassino. This is one of the most brutal, costly battles of World War II. The Germans have fortified a hilltop monastery and the surrounding mountains. The position is nearly impregnable. The Allies have tried 4 times to break through. 4 times they've failed. Now it's the Polish Second Corps' turn. They're given the mission to take Monte Cassino, the very place that's chewed up and spit out British, American, French, and New Zealand forces. The Polish soldiers know this is suicide, but they also know that if Poland is ever going to be free, they need to prove their worth to the Allies. They need to show that Polish soldiers can do what others cannot. The Battle of Monte Cassino begins on May 11th, 1944. It's hell. German artillery rains down on the Polish positions. Machine guns tear through advancing troops. The slopes of Monte Cassino become littered with Polish bodies. The 22nd Artillery Supply Company has a critical job: deliver ammunition to the frontline gun positions. Without ammunition, the artillery can't fire. Without artillery support, the infantry can't advance. Everything depends on keeping those supply lines moving. And Wojtek is right there in the middle of it. Multiple soldiers reported seeing Wojtek carrying ammunition crates. These weren't small boxes. They were 100-pound crates containing 25-pound artillery shells. Wojtek would carry them from the supply trucks to the gun positions, walking upright on his hind legs, never dropping a single crate. Was he trained to do this, or did he just watch the soldiers and imitate them? Nobody knows for certain. Some accounts suggest he was trained. Others say he simply mimicked the human soldiers around him, wanting to help his family. What is certain is this. Under fire, with explosions all around, Wojtek carried ammunition. He didn't run. He didn't panic. He worked. One British soldier years later wrote about seeing a bear carrying ammunition crates at Monte Cassino and thinking he'd lost his mind, until he asked around and learned that yes, the Poles really did have a bear, and yes, that bear really was carrying ammunition. The Battle of Monte Cassino lasted until May 18th. The Polish forces suffered over 4,000 casualties, killed, wounded, or missing. But they succeeded where others had failed. They took Monte Cassino. On May 18, 1944, Polish soldiers raised the Polish flag over the ruins of the monastery. It was a moment of triumph and heartbreak. Triumph because they'd won. Heartbreak because of the staggering cost. And Wojtek was there for all of it. For his service during the battle, Wojtek was promoted from private to corporal. More significantly, the 22nd Artillery Supply Company changed its official emblem to honor him, a bear carrying an artillery shell. That emblem remains to this day, a permanent reminder of the bear who fought at Monte Cassino. After the battle, Wojtek became a celebrity. Allied generals and visiting dignitaries would ask to meet the bear. Journalists wrote stories about him. He was photographed extensively. He'd sit in the front seats of military trucks, startling local civilians who'd see a massive bear riding shotgun with Polish soldiers. He attended military dances with the troops. He'd wrestle with soldiers, gently, never using his claws. He'd sometimes grab horses' tails, spooking them, or try to play with donkeys. But he never hurt anyone. Despite weighing 500 pounds and having the strength to kill a human with one swipe, Wojtek was always gentle. He'd been raised by humans since he was a cub. He didn't know how to be a wild bear. He only knew how to be a soldier. May 1945. Germany surrenders. World War II in Europe is over. But for the Polish soldiers, including Wojtek, there's no victory celebration, because Poland hasn't been freed. It's been occupied by a different enemy, the Soviet Union.
Stalin's USSR has installed a communist puppet government in Poland. The soldiers of Anders' army are considered traitors by the new regime. If they return to Poland, they'll be arrested, possibly executed. So they can't go home. They're soldiers without a country. Exiles. The Polish Second Corps is stationed in Scotland at Winfield Airfield near the village of Hutton in Berwickshire. About 3,000 Polish soldiers are stationed there, waiting to see what will happen to them. Wojtek goes with them, and for a brief time, life in Scotland is good. The local Scottish civilians fall in love with the bear. Children from nearby villages would visit the camp to see Wojtek. He'd give them rides on his back. He'd attend local social events with the soldiers. There are stories of Wojtek climbing trees. His favorite tree still exists in Scotland, with scratch marks from his claws still visible decades later. But gradually, the Polish soldiers begin to leave. Some emigrate to other countries, some try to rebuild their lives in Britain. The camps start closing down, and a difficult question arises. What do we do with Wojtek? He can't go to Poland. The communist government would turn him into propaganda or worse. He can't go into the wild. He's never lived in the wild. He doesn't know how to hunt. He doesn't fear humans. He'd be killed or captured immediately. In November 1947, the soldiers make a heartbreaking decision. Wojtek is donated to the Edinburgh Zoo. For the soldiers, it's devastating. They're losing the last connection to their wartime family, but they tell themselves it's for Wojtek's own good. At least at the zoo, he'll be safe, fed, cared for. Wojtek lives at Edinburgh Zoo for the next 16 years. His former soldiers visit him regularly. They bring him beer and cigarettes, the treats he loves. They speak to him in Polish. And according to zookeepers, Wojtek would perk up whenever he heard Polish being spoken. He'd recognize his old comrades and become animated and playful. But when the Poles weren't there, Wojtek was different, quiet, isolated. The other bears at the zoo tried to socialize with him, but Wojtek didn't know how to interact with them. He'd lived his entire life among humans. Bears were foreign to him. The zookeepers noted that Wojtek seemed lonely.
He'd been a social creature his entire life, constantly surrounded by soldiers who loved him. Now he was alone in a pen, visited occasionally, but mostly just a curiosity for tourists who had no idea of his history. December 2nd, 1963. Wojtek dies at Edinburgh Zoo. He's 21 years old, about average for a Syrian brown bear in captivity. The news of his death makes international headlines. Polish veterans around the world mourn. To them, Wojtek wasn't just a bear. He was a symbol of their shared suffering and survival. He represented a time when they had a purpose, a family, a place in the world. For decades after his death, Wojtek's story fades from public consciousness. Oh, Polish veterans remember. They tell their children and grandchildren about the bear who carried ammunition at Monte Cassino. But to the wider world, it's just a curious footnote. Until the 21st century. In the 2000s, researchers and historians begin documenting Wojtek's story more thoroughly. Books are written. Documentaries are filmed. The full scope of his extraordinary life comes to light. And then, the memorials begin. In 2013, a statue of Wojtek is unveiled in Krakow's Jordan Park, commemorating the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Monte Cassino. In 2015, a bronze statue is unveiled in Edinburgh's Princes Street Gardens, showing Wojtek walking alongside a Polish soldier. It's erected near where he spent his final years. Additional statues are erected in Duns, Scotland, 2016, Cassino, Italy, 2019, and Sopot, Poland, 2019. There are wooden sculptures in Poznan Zoo and Grimsby. There are plaques in the Imperial War Museum in London and the Sikorsky Museum.
Today, Wojtek is remembered not just in Poland, but internationally. His story has been adapted into children's books, plays, and animated films. He's taught in schools as an example of the unlikely bonds formed during wartime. But here's what makes Wojtek's story truly significant. He represents something profound about World War II that's often overlooked. We remember the grand strategies, the famous generals, the pivotal battles. But World War II was also about small moments of humanity in the midst of horror, about soldiers who'd lost everything, finding comfort in an orphaned bear cub, about choosing to carry that bear through deserts and across seas, even when it made no practical sense. Wojtek's story is about love and loyalty in a time of darkness, about how, even in the worst circumstances, humans seek connection, family, something to care for beyond mere survival. The Polish soldiers could have left that bear cub in Persia. It would have been the smart thing to do, but they didn't. They carried him through North Africa, through Italy, through some of the war's deadliest battles. Not because he was useful. He became useful later, almost by accident, but because he was theirs, because he needed them and they needed him. And Wojtek, in his own way, understood that. A wild bear would have left, would have run away at the first opportunity, but Wojtek stayed. He marched with the soldiers. He carried ammunition under fire. He chose again and again to be part of this strange human family that had adopted him. There's debate among historians about some details of Wojtek's story. Did he really carry live ammunition or just empty crates? Did he actually smoke cigarettes or just eat them? How much of his behavior was training versus instinct? But these details miss the larger truth. Wojtek was real. His service was real. His bond with the soldiers of the 22nd Artillery Supply Company was real. The emblem of a bear carrying an artillery shell, that's real. It's still the official insignia of what became the 22nd Transport Company of the Polish Armed Forces.
The soldiers who visited him at Edinburgh Zoo decades after the war, bringing him beer and cigarettes and memories. That was real. The loneliness he felt, separated from the only family he'd ever known. That was real too. In 2024, a play about Wojtek premiered in Coventry, introducing new generations to his story. Children who'd never heard of the Battle of Monte Cassino learned about the bear who carried ammunition. And they ask the same questions adults ask. How could a bear become a soldier? How could soldiers form such a bond with a wild animal? The answer is simple and profound. War strips away everything comfortable and familiar. In that void, humans will bond with anything that offers comfort and connection. A bear cub represents innocence, playfulness, life continuing despite death all around. For the Polish soldiers of Wander's army, Wojtek was all of that and more. He was the family they'd lost. He was the home they couldn't return to. He was proof that even in the darkest times, love and loyalty still matter. Today, if you visit Edinburgh's Prince's Street Gardens, you can see the statue of Wojtek and his soldier. The bear stands upright, powerful and gentle. The soldier walks beside him, hand extended, touching his fur. They're together, as they were in life. The inscription reads, Wojtek, the Soldier Bear, 1942 to 1963. But it might as well say, this is what war really looks like. Not just battles and strategy, but small moments of humanity. A bear and a man, walking together through hell, finding comfort in each other's company. That's Wojtek's legacy. Not that he carried ammunition, though he did. Not that he was promoted to corporal, though he was. His legacy is this. In the worst war in human history, a bear reminded men how to be human. How to love something beyond themselves. How to find joy in the midst of sorrow. And for that, Corporal Wojtek deserves to be remembered. Not as a curiosity or an amusing anecdote, but as a symbol of what makes us human even when humanity seems lost. The Syrian brown bear who drank beer, ate cigarettes, and carried ammunition at Monte Cassino. The soldier bear who never forgot the men who saved him, even when he was alone in a zoo, thousands of miles from any battlefield. The joyful warrior whose story reminds us that even in war, love survives.